Welcome everybody to GoLocal Live. I'm Josh Fenton, CEO and co-founder. A couple quick notes. Want to thank Zach Levesque from North Point for talking about what's going on in the mortgage industry, a big concern for lots of Rhode Islanders. And then a couple programming notes. 12 noon, Dr. Michael Fine, he'll be on talking about some of the updated numbers. And at 1 p.m., Governor Gina Raimondo will do her briefing. Now, let's go to Professor Hilary Levey Friedman at Brown University, who has just launched a new book. Hilary, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, here you are a leading academic, and you're the head of Rhode Island Now. How did you become an expert, a leading academic on the issue of beauty pageants?
Well, the first thing I want to say, and people are probably wondering, no, I have never competed in a beauty pageant. However, my mother was actually Miss America 1970. So you could say that pageantry is literally in my blood. So as I write in the preface to the book, there's never been a time in my life that I have not known what a beauty pageant is. And growing up, it was sort of like my mom was the beauty and I was the brains. And to me, those things were separate. And I would say the past few decades of my life have been about figuring out how those things do not have to be mutually exclusive for anybody.
And what was the impact of growing up with Miss America? I mean, it had to be profound, wildly well-known, but this incredible legacy. What did it mean to her and to your relationship to her?
Well, the first thing that I sort of joke about, although it's real, is I generally know how to do my hair. Even during a pandemic, when I have not gotten my hair cut, I can curl it and try to know how to do makeup and sort of speak well in a setting like this. So I would say that was definitely passed on to me. But it's much deeper than that, because I would say that particularly in the Miss America program, those contestants and winners are very engaged civically. They find lots of ways to be involved in community service and also politics. So that, I think, has really stayed with me. And then there's also just I remember in 4th grade, my teacher being like, oh, like, that's your mom, like, you look nothing like her. Or in dance classes, because my mom was a dancer, they'd say, oh, you don't have your mother's turnout. So I would say, really I have tried to find my own path, even though somehow I've ended up back here.
You wrote a piece in 2018 USA Today when they ended the swimsuit aspect of Miss America. Your thoughts were, listen, that's probably overdue, but fitness and being a complete person, sort of in the Greek ideology, is important to communicate. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, look, I mean, for women today, it has never been more of an exciting moment for women to be athletes. We've got everything going on with the U.S. soccer team and how great they are and the way they're fighting for equal pay. That's just one example. So it is, just not just accepted for women to exercise. We really want to be fit and promote a healthy lifestyle. And that makes a lot of sense. So, to me, that aspect of Miss America, that Miss America competition, was not healthy for everybody, but could be very healthy for some. And to eliminate it completely seemed to overlook one important aspect of American womanhood today. Now, what's really interesting, and because life is always throwing up some fascinating twists and turns, the year Miss America 2018, the year that they got rid of swimsuit, that winner, Cara Mund, was actually a student of mine at Brown University. I was in the audience when she won in Atlantic City. And so that was even, further fuel for me to say, I have to write this book, and I really have a unique perspective on the topic of beauty pageants in American society.
Daughter of, professor of, almost complete circle. Tell us why this book's important.
Well, what I do in this book is I use beauty pageants to trace the arc of feminism in the United States. I start in 1848 with Seneca Falls talk about P.T. Barnum, who's actually the one who really started both women's and baby contests in the United States in the 1850s. And I go up to the present. So this is really using beauty pageants as a lens to see what's changed for women in higher education, in employment, what's changed in our culture. Like, let me tell you, if you like RuPaul's Drag Race and The Bachelor and American Idol, this is the book for you, because I draw, sort of a straight line to show how beauty pageants have really become embedded in American culture.
Will the two major ones, pageants, survive this pandemic?
Well, that's a really interesting question. Miss America is supposed to be celebrating its 100th anniversary this September. Now, first of all, let's pause and reflect on how amazing that is for an American cultural institution to be around that long. Super Bowl is not that old. Even the Academy Awards are not that old. But as a consequence of the pandemic, pretty much all of the state competitions have either canceled or pushed their competitions back. So we know that Miss America will definitely not be held this fall. Miss USA runs on a slightly different schedule, but I suspect and expect that they will go on. Whether there will be an event held in 2020, that remains to be seen. Miss America does this weird thing called post-dating, that you're crowned in sort of the fall or winter, early winter of a year, but you reign in the next year. So whoever is crowned in 2020 would be Miss America 2021. It's possible that pageant will be held in January. During World War II, Miss America was one of the few sort of public experiences that continued to be held. They got rid of the parade because they wanted to preserve the tires, but there's certainly a tradition and a legacy of these sorts of things continuing. Whether there can be an arena full of people, that is a much, much deeper question, and for the scientists, the hard scientists, that I can't answer.
Miss USA has a different track, and was it once owned by Donald Trump?
You are correct. Miss USA used to be owned by Donald Trump. In the 1990s, he purchased the Miss Universe and Miss USA pageants, and Miss Teen USA is part of that. Miss USA has a very different history from Miss America. Miss USA was always started as a for-profit organization. So when people will say, what's the difference between Miss America and Miss USA? I don't really know. I say, well, on the one hand, there's no reason you have to know. But on the other hand, there are these very real differences. So I used to say the difference is the 3 T's, tuition, talent, and Trump. So Miss America has this tuition component and talent, and Miss USA was about Trump. Now I say, I hope I can say this word on GoLocal, but instead of Trump, because he was actually forced to sell when he announced he was running for president and offended so many people from Mexico. But now I say it's talent, tuition, and tits are the difference between the 3. So Miss USA has always been about how you look. Starting in the 1950s, how do you look in a swimsuit? How do you look in an evening gown? It's never been confused about who it is, whereas Miss America has really changed a lot more with the evolution of women.
That word is fine. Our very first day 3 years ago, our first guest was Navin Salem, who created Edesio, just feeding people around the world. Our second guest was Vinny Pazienza, who dropped about 5 F-bombs in his first 30 seconds. So we've curtailed swearing, but I think that was in the gray zone, so you're fine there. What do you expect as this book rolls out, what do you think the reaction's gonna be?
Well, I've obviously been thinking a lot about that. I think that the pandemic, certainly, I think many more people are reading right now and have more time to read. And some people will be looking for distractions while still wanting to read things that are tangentially related to what's going on in the world. So in that respect, I think this book speaks to that. I'll just give you another example. I talk a lot about the history of child beauty pageants and how these started as baby contests and baby parades. So the Asbury Park Baby Parade was just huge in the 20th century, and the 1949 one had hundreds of thousands of people watching, and they had no idea that by 1950 it would no longer exist, and that was because of polio outbreaks. and it did not return until 1973. So I think, again, in using beauty pageants to look at the history of our society, there are going to be these connections. Also, the Donald Trump thing is not to be overlooked. So many people dismissed Trump's candidacy because of his ties to reality television and to pageantry. But, he really showed that sometimes the form is more important than the function, and it helps explain, in some ways, how Donald Trump became president of the United States.
So that Ashbury baby pageant would not have returned if it were not for Jonas Salk's scientific work. Is that correct?
I completely believe that. If there were still polio outbreaks, which as a parent myself, that's one thing I'm very grateful for with COVID-19, that children seem to be safe, but the thought of children being, polio targeted children more than anybody else. So that's certainly a terrifying thought.
Hilary, if it does come back, will the answer to every question then be no longer world peace? It will be curtailing pandemics?
Well, there's another interesting aspect to this, which is if you're thinking about changes in women's education over time, not only do we have more women going to college and in law school and medical school than men these days, but we're really trying to direct women into STEM-related fields. And I actually find some mixed results on whether or not beauty contestants and winners are actually going into STEM fields in greater numbers. But I suspect that for an entire generation of children, including women, this will influence the career paths that they want to go down. And so I do think we'll hear more about it.
Hilary, what else do folks, before we wrap up, need to know?
Well, first of all, if you want to pre-order this book, there's a great way to support local business, which is Books on the Square. And Wayland Square is running a special that you can get percentage off, and you will be able to buy a signed copy. So just wanted to put that out there, that it's a great way to support Providence small businesses. And then, of course, it's always an option on the other major retailers as well. But I'm really excited to get this out there. In some ways, I've been working on this book my whole life, so I'm definitely excited to hear people's thoughts on it.
Professor Hilary Levey Friedman, thank you so much. This was great. I love all your insights. We look forward to hearing more updates about it. And as the book picks up steam around the country and around the world, we hope we can get you back. For everybody else, stay tuned. Dr. Mike Fine at 12 noon, Governor Raimondo at 1. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.